And we are back with another episode of the Hockey Princess podcast. I am your host, the Hockey Princess. We got Chris, the old guy, once again. Just as a reminder to hit that like and subscribe on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. And by the time this episode airs, guys, we will have merch.
We have merch. What is merch?
We have merch. We have shirts. We have hats. We have everything. The links will be below. The links will be on our social medias. Shout out to our logo artist, T. Murphy, out in San Diego, California. Big Blackhawks fan, former season ticket holder. They did the logo for us, and they will be doing the merch. And we have merch, guys. Buy our merch. It's super cute.
Yes, it'll help us get an intern. Oh, wait, we don't pay interns. Never mind.
All right. And on that note, it's really quiet in the NHL this week.
Does our merch, is it dog related too?
I don't know. We'll see. That I don't know. I don't think so.
You need like the dog vest.
Okay.
Dog stuff sells. Everybody has to buy stuff for their dogs. Just saying. Okay. Sorry.
You have to buy.
There's derailment number one of me trying to ease out some time out of this episode. Go on.
No, because we've got a lot to talk about because I've made a lot of something out of nothing for a week. Guys, is that actually a list? Or is that like
that's my camp list?
Oh, nice. Guys,
I copied and printed. I'm exhausted.
Guys, it's really quiet in the NHL world. The draft is done, free agency is done, the cup final is done. We have really nothing to do until mid-September. Chicago Blackhawk fans really have nothing to do because we are one of the few teams whose development camp is off ice. I was angry last year. I'll be angry this year. And I'll be angry every year. Nothing's going to change. But I'll still be angry because while everybody else got cute little pictures of Ryan Leonard sitting on top of their net doing 3-on-3s with other prospects, we have nothing. So it'll be really quiet until mid-September.
Yeah, it's all really pathetic. Can we get them playing maybe wiffle ball? Can we get them in some kind of sports activity? How about some bowling? Nobody's going to get hurt bowling. But no, we get cooking. And of course, they take them up to the north side and tell them not to go to the south side.
Yeah.
Stupid.
It is stupid. I complained last year. Things will not change. One of my biggest complaints, and I'll say it again because it's my show, is you have a lot of kids that are in college, be it in Michigan, Minnesota, BU, wherever, that they don't go to training camp like some junior kids can. So there is no real opportunity to see them from a fan standpoint, just to see them play, or to, see them play with any of the other prospects. That was always one of my favorite things when we had on-ice development camp, was everyone was there and you could see everyone play with each other. It probably wasn't going to happen going into training camp because people were going to go to their respective teams, but you could see everyone on the ice together. That was definitely one of my favorite things. It definitely hurts that I've got to drive or get on a bus hours and hours away to see Oliver Moore on the ice. It would have been cool to see him at development camp. Same with Ryan Green, who I have not seen a ton of. And guys, I'm not going to Boston this season. That's really far. That was definitely one of my biggest issues with it, is from a fan standpoint. It's a lot more accessible to see all of these kids who play hours and hours away once throughout the year. And you can see all of the other kiddos just play together who don't get to on a regular basis.
Well, what you need to remember is it's not about you. It's not about the fan. Okay? It's what's easier for this ball club. Okay? And it's easier just to have cooking classes. Okay? Have them watch some videos, play some games, and be done with it. It's a heck of a lot easier to do that than have them skating around and having coaches here. Okay? It's not about you. It's not about the fan. Jimmy Faulkner has let us know to begin with that it is not about the fan base. They could care less. Okay? You don't like it, go cheer on some other team. Okay. You had to wind me up, didn't you?
Yeah, I had to complain about my development camp. That was one of my favorite things to watch throughout the year.
Well, if you would like, we can put out shirts this year that are now say holistically training since 2023. So we're organically grown, we're holistically training, and whatever silly word KD will use about something else.
Who knows? But anyway, so there's not a, yeah. So there's not.
But anyways, wouldn't you like to see Sasha go up against Lewinsky?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have really enjoyed that. That would have made my day.
Yeah.
But you can't get that.
Yeah, we get nothing, and you'll like it.
Okay.
But we do have some prospects to talk about. Because I made notes because it's my favorite thing. And because since we didn't get to see them on the ice, there's a lot of kiddos that were, just drafted, going to Rockford this first year. Maybe, they're going to have their first year up in the big leagues next year. And you're wondering, who is this guy? Who are these people? And that's what we're going to do, is we're going to tell you who these people are. Now, we're not going to talk about this past draft class just because we did 2 entire bonus episodes talking about in depth the new draft picks. And there's not really any new information about any of those picks that have happened in the past 4 weeks.
No, and I believe all of those picks will go right back to their respective junior clubs. So,
except Artie the Party.
Except for Artie the Party.
Level. There was a lot of, rumors. I know from the Hawks standpoint, they were kind of very much like, we want him to sign. We want him in Rockford to be watched, to be developed. I'm a big fan of this. Like I said last week, if I could get Korchinski and Levshunov down in Rockford for, even a portion of next season, that would be ideal. However, if I could get, Artie and Allen together for most of next year, also big fan of that. Big fan of Artie going to Rockford.
Yeah, and I don't know what you did on your show, but it seems like a lot of other amateur podcasters have all of a sudden been taking your same route of Core might be going to Rockford. That seems to be the buzz.
Which, as we talked about last week, and as I'm going to say every week, because there are a lot of people who, like to give Rockford a bad name, whatever, like the shit talk on Rockford quite a bit. It is not a demotion by any means for Core to go spend time in Rockford. I think it benefits him more to, develop with the younger decor, and he does not need to sit through 82 more games of this shit show. He doesn't. It's still going to be really bad. Yes, we have some veteran additions. He does not need to sit through this again. This does not, build him character and immediately make him a better hockey player because he has to sit through this. No, what makes him a better hockey player is getting time down in Rockford with everybody that's developing together. And it's also not all on him all the time. It is more of a group thing. It's not just something bad happens. Oh, Core was bad again. Core was bad again. It's not all on him. The attention is way more distributed throughout all of the defensemen down in Rockford versus up in Chicago. You know, the first person that people like to point fingers at is Seth when he messes up, and then Core is the next one.
Well, trust me, Seth will still be your whipping boy, and he'll be your whipping boy until he leaves Chicago. That's just the kind of the way it is. As far as Core, number one, I like what you said. I'd like posters of it maybe. Rockford, it's not a demotion and it's not a punishment. It's called development. I thought you really hit the button on last week's episode.
I like to defend.
And if Core goes down there, it's to get him to start working on things. He is treading water up here. Again, on this show, we did not go into his game because I just did not find it fair.
Well, he's an 18-year-old stuck in an impossible scenario for an entire season.
But now that you've come out and said we're going to be more competitive, we almost want to win. It puts a tiny bit more pressure. The Meathead fan base up here could easily turn on Core because he's supposed to be a partial savior. He gets protected down in Rockford, and there's nothing wrong with protecting the 19-year-old now.
Oh, big fan of that.
So, but go on, continue.
Yeah, so we're a big fan of Rockford. Like I said, Lev Shunov is going to go to Rockford. 99% sure it hasn't been officially confirmed because we still have to go through training camp. KD has stated and made it very obvious that for the younger kids, everybody is fighting for a spot. No one's really guaranteed a spot on the Blackhawk roster. You know, going into training camp, it's kind of everybody's spot to lose, which was also sending, flares off in the back of my head that means that Core isn't guaranteed to stay up in Chicago, and then Core could go down to Rockford. It's not guaranteed. But again, we don't know 100% really for anything aside from Tyler Bertuzzi being in the first line come October, whatever.
Right. And for your listeners, you need to understand that KD likes to talk to the hockey stupid. And that's usually when he's talking, that's who he's talking to. Yes, they'll have to earn a spot unless you're Lucas Reichel. He doesn't have to earn a spot. He's going to be up with the big club. He won't be sent down because then you'll lose him. So there's certain players that are going to be up whether they've earned it or not, and you're going to have to deal with them up at the NHL level. As we went over like last week, Lucas will be one of them. Even if he doesn't earn himself a spot, they're not shipping him to Rockford. So
yeah.
So Katie can say it all he wants, but that's because he can waiver exempt all of his younger players.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to get into our prospect talk. Just as a reminder, the college kids will not be at training camp in September with the exception of Frank Nazar because he signed his entry level at the end of last season. So your Sam Renzel, your Ryan Green, your Oliver Moore, they are all going back to school come next year. I know Katie answered a couple of questions about Ryan Green during this off-ice development camp. And I basically understood it as there's no room for him right now in terms of Rockford versus Chicago. There's not a particular spot. He's fine developing in Boston. They've got all of the CHL or European kids that have been developing that are coming into Rockford right now. He can develop in Boston. It's fine.
Yeah, and it's a little bit easier of a path to be developing in college, playing the forward position than a defenseman. That's the reason why you kind of wanted Artie here.
I also think it very much depends on the school that they're coming from.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes. And
especially if you're at a school that's already like the Boston schools are incredibly talented, you know, and they're constantly in the playoffs every year. They're very, very good. It's not a bad place to be at. If you're at a school where you're kind of like teetering on, you know, do you go to postseason? Is it the best sort of hockey structure? Then yeah, you might be better off, you know, jumping to Rockford earlier. But Ryan Green is fine in Boston.
yes.
All right, so let's get into our first kiddo that was at the off-ice development camp, and that is your Frank Nazar. Now, guys, who is Frank Nazar? He was drafted number 13 in 2022, a controversial pick, just because the 2022 draft still haunts me to this day. It was in exchange for Kirby Dach from the Montreal Canadiens. Played 2 years at University of Michigan. He was primarily injured for a good portion of his first year, which is why a lot of people were like, no, he needs another year. It's not the end of the world if he doesn't come out of Michigan after his freshman year to play in Chicago or Rockford. So we went back for another year. He is a center / winger, rocking at about 5'9", and he is 20, and he is a short 5'9". This kid's a little shorty, as Krusty and I both saw during his first game. Had 3 games up in the NHL last season, 1 goal. The goal was fantastic also. I was there. Averaged about 1 point per game his final year at University of Michigan. Slated for Rockford potentially next season, according to Elite Prospects. They've had him listed as Rockford Ice Hogs. But he's definitely one of those where we're not entirely sure, just because there's no guarantee before training camp. My bet, he's in Rockford. And potentially if development, you know, goes the way that it can, best case scenario, because I know Chris, the old guy, is going to come say after that, you know, we don't know. Potentially everything works. Top 6 player is what he's projected to be, but we don't know.
We do not know this. Again, he's 5'9". Watching him play, he's like a little fire plug. What do they call him? A linebacker?
A linebacker
on ice, except I know no 5'9" linebackers ever, except for maybe when I was in Pop Warner football. But I digress. Yeah, he's gonna, for me, he needs the whole year in Rockford. At that size, you're going to need to learn how to play against men. And he'll get that in Rockford. There's some big men in Rockford. You're going to need to learn that you're not at Michigan anymore and you're not number one. Everybody on your team is out talenting most of your games for the year. This is a whole different ball game. You know, you're expected to win all one-on-one battles. That's the main thing. You didn't catch a lot of that at Michigan. You were just so much better. So, you know, Frank's one to watch. He's very talented offensively. He's got some darn good wheels. It's the size. And again, the NHL is becoming such a game of every little one-on-one battle on the ice. And that'll be the one thing I'll be looking for in Rockford. So,
yeah.
And I'm already on record that I would have much rather had Kirby Dach.
Really? With his injury?
Yeah, I don't know if he'll ever play again, but I mean, I didn't want the trade.
No, I definitely did. The trade
It's
hurt.
just to your listeners, I like to be on board and very I am actually transparent. See that picture behind my head? I'm sure you could see it. I'm so transparent. That's your Winter Classic. Hockey Princess took that picture. I wasn't there.
But you'll be at this one.
Yes, but I'll get this one.
Next kiddo is we've got Oliver Moore, University of Michigan, originally from the USN TDP program, where he was drafted out of, well, not this past year, but last year, 2023, the number 19 pick that we got from one of my least favorite trades. That was the Brandon Hagel trade. But he is 19, a centerman as of right now, rocking 5'11". First year at Minnesota, he got 33 points in 39 games. Is going back to University of Minnesota this year, which I think is a great thing. And like I said, with NASCAR, if everything goes well, development goes the way that we all hope, potential top 6.
Yes. Yeah, Moore is definitely somebody who's got number one. His speed is supposed to be off the charts.
And I will definitely agree. The one game I saw him in person, the kid's got mad wheels.
And again, is he a goal scorer? We don't know. Is he a playmaker? Yes. Yeah, he's projected at his best role will be in top 6. To be that unbelievable transition threat off the rush. Somebody to get an extra defenseman coming at him so he can then distribute the puck to somebody wide open. Again, he'll be going back to the U. I would assume he'll start to get top line minutes. You would know better than me.
He was rocking like second line minutes.
Yeah. And again, he's another one that I would assume will come out after next year. And he will also need a year in Rockford for the same reason we talked about Frank. You need a year playing against Med unless you've got unbelievable talent. And again, what we don't know what we have in Oliver Moore is the one-on-one battles. I know he can fly past people. And I know he can do some special things on the rush. But the NHL game isn't always on the rush.
Right. Next guy we have is definitely one of our favorites and headed to Rockford this upcoming year. And that is your Gavin Hayes. Big fan. Drafted in 2022, number 66 pick. He's a winger, 6'1". Signed his entry level at the tail end of last year once the Sioux Greyhounds were knocked out of the playoffs. He will go to Rockford this upcoming season. That is a slam dunk guarantee, pretty much, barring anything wackadoo happening. Last year, he was on the Flint Firebirds and then got traded to the Sioux Greyhounds at the end of the season. He is... I see him third line, but like solid third line. Potential could be more. Absolutely. I'm not entirely sure where I could see him at. Like, you know, but I think he will have a very interesting time in Rockford. I think he is going to shine in Rockford because I think the style of game, he plays a little bit rougher, not incredibly rough. He's not like an agitator fighter per se, but I think he will do well his first year in Rockford.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. Number one, he's a little bit more of a goal scorer than if you go through the rest of our top prospects. They all seem to be fast playmakers. He can put the puck in the net too. Yeah. And that might be the difference of him playing on like a second line.
That's the thing. I feel like he's second or third. Like he's definitely, I don't know if I see him playing top line minutes, but I don't think I see him on the fourth. He's not a fourth line player.
No, but he could. He was playing more of a defensive role, penalty kill for Team USA. So actually, he could play the fourth line. I mean, might be all he has. the Hawks will be different in 2 or 3 years than most teams, where that fourth line isn't going to be veteran laden. Their fourth line will also be kids. And they're going to be just flat out young. And what they'll and so I think he could actually do a fourth line role. We'll see. Is he able to put the puck in the net in tighter spots in the AHL? He does have some grit to his game. I'm hoping for a lot of goals from him, because I think that's the one thing that might be missing a little bit in Rockford. So interested to see him play. Maybe he gets some power play time down there. So
I mean, it's definitely for the taking for him. Because there's a lot of spots open in Rockford going into this year.
Yeah, there's going to be some good competition. All the kids stay healthy. That should be fun.
Yeah. Next, we're going to jump to Krusty's favorite. I'll introduce, and then you can just talk about how much you like this kid. And that is your Paul Ludwinski from the Kingston Frontenacs. Again, like most of these kids, signed as entry level at the tail end of last year. Will be going to Rockford this upcoming year. Last year with Kingston, got 69 points in 60 games. His size, motor are definitely, in the pro column for him. He was drafted in 2022, and I see him as a centerman that could potentially stay as a centerman, which is very important to me. But yeah, you want to talk about Ludwinski?
I love talking about Ludwinski. The first thing we want to know is, should I still try to get a jersey of Ludwinski's? I have not decided that. He's your constant competitor. He's going to be constantly moving on the ice. Again, with him, it's you're 5'11", 190. Are you big enough to play centerman in the NHL? I believe so, just because of exactly how tough he is without the puck. Also, Ludwinski has some wheels also.
Everybody has wheels.
He uses his wheels in a different way. It's more defensively. It's more to get to open spots. He's very good without the puck. I envision him being a third line center. Riding shotgun with your guy. But again, we'll see what all of these kids will need to do. Like Ludwinski, they're going to have to put the puck in the net, because you got a lot of people that can do a lot of the same thing. And if you can't distance yourself by putting the puck in the net, it's going to be a problem. But it'll also be a penalty killer. And he's one of those motor guys. He's, he can be a penis at times. He likes making you uncomfortable. So crusty old guy's type of player. Yeah. We'll see how he adapts to the AHL game. Again, you're pestering men. They go about things a little differently than they do down in juniors. There's prices to be paid. Who's going to pay the price? Who's going to shy away a little bit? Everything that I've seen from Ludwinski is he won't be shying away. So, and again, one of the many Blackhawks who has to change his number.
Yes, he does. But he already has changed his number, I believe.
To 91?
Yeah. Which then he'll have to change again.
Why? Who's 91?
Who's getting it? NASCAR or Ludwinski?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a very good question.
I don't know why we're concerned about numbers, but yeah, it's something you always want to talk about. I don't know. Ludwinski's here first. He's got it.
Sliding onto, hopefully, fingers crossed, the winger for Paul Ludwinski and my favorite prospect. I cannot wait to see this kid in Rockford, and that is your Sam Savoie. He's a little bit on the smaller side. He's 5'10". Again, drafted same year as Ledwinski with the number 81 pick. Previously in the Q League with the Gatineau Olympiques, and then traded to the Rune-Norada Huskies while he was injured. As we all remember, he had a horrible injury last year that kept him out for a good portion, kind of wrecked any potential anything in training camp and preseason. But he came back better than ever. He had 22 points in 21 games, and that was coming back from a broken femur. Also, guys, this kid is an ass in the best way. He gets thrown out. I mean, it won't happen in the AHL because they don't do this in the AHL. But I think my favorite was during the tail end of the season, and he scored, and he was celebrating to the other bench, and then they took him out of the game. He is an ass, and I'm just so excited. He can score. He's a pest. Definitely needs to, size is definitely a concern. So he needs to, be concerned on not getting hit all the time with, that he's a little bit on the smaller side. But I can't wait. I love the theatrics, the drama of his game, the personality that he has on ice. That was definitely one of my favorite things in the 2022, the last year that they had the on-ice development camp. And definitely why Savoie, Ledwinski, and Hayes are some of my favorite prospects that are coming up. That, going into that development camp, no one really knew what was going on. DeBrincat had gotten traded. Doc had gotten traded. All of these guys were gone. Kubalik and Strome that were gone in free agency. Everyone was leaving. And so everyone was kind of sad, confused, and depressed at on-ice development camp because no one knew what was going on. And then you see these three pests skating around with the most personality out of anybody on the ice. And it is your Gavin Hayes, your Paul Ledwinski, and your Sam Savoie. And I'm just excited.
Yeah, and again, it's a possibility for a third line in the big leagues. Again, might be on the small side, but Hayes is 6'1". It's always possible. I don't need to say anything about Savoie. You usually take care of that. A little bit of rumblings that maybe he could make the big club. But it's not going to happen. There's just no need for it.
Don't.
Again, these guys will earn it. After the trade deadline, they'll be brought up. Who's ever earned it. Also, maybe spot here or there with an injury. Each one of them gets moved up for a little bit. They get an NHL payday for a couple games. That's some big bucks.
Yeah.
So,
because as we should remind just every week, the Blackhawks do not stay healthy. I mean, I don't think there's really any NHL team that stays healthy throughout the entire season, but we don't have the best track record. So even if come the end of training camp, there's, here's Chicago's roster, here is Rockford's roster. Doesn't mean that we're never going to see these kids throughout the year and there's no potential.
But we're holistically training. Doesn't that mean we're better?
No.
We're holistically training.
No.
It's like training without training. I think we'll be a little bit healthier this year. I think you had some veterans that just didn't want to be here. So they weren't in a hurry to get back. I think they went into it wanting to get injured. But again, it's an older, like you mentioned, it's an older team. They're going to get hurt. And, then somebody gets a little time. But as you've been saying, Rockford, it's not a demotion.
It's
or a punishment. It's about development. Yeah, you're going to just keep on going.
Well, do you have, before I keep going, because I've got do you have any guys that you want to that are on the list that
I could go off of you?
Rockford, that you're intrigued to see what they do this year, that you want to make sure our listeners know, who is this guy?
No, I got you can go with the Russian who came out here, but we couldn't watch him skate either. Kanserov is, somebody who I'm curious what all he can do. He's supposed to be a pretty talented player, but I didn't get to watch him at prospect camp because they wouldn't let us even watch people cook. Figured they would have maybe let us watch them cook, but they didn't. No, you just continue to go on.
All right. Well, we can talk about Kanserov for a second. So he was drafted this past year, 2023. He's on the smaller side, being 5'9". He's a winger. His contract with the KHL runs through the 2025-2026 season. This past year was his first year doing a full year in the KHL. Prior to that, he was in the MHL. And his points are a little on the low side, but as we talked about, throughout the year, prospects that play in the KHL, the Finnish Professional League, play in Switzerland like Felkman, or even in the SHL, they run their rosters very differently. And so it's going to look incredibly skewed in terms of the points to games ratio compared to kids that are in college in AHL or up in the CHL.
Yeah. The thing that's gotten everybody a little bubbly is points weren't completely there in the K, but he did pretty good, gosh darn well in their playoff run. I think like 13 points in like 24 games or something like that. So he produced in playoff time. Again, his drawback is the same as, Frank Nazar's drawback. You're 5'9".
And that
at the end of the day, you're at your limit for 5'9". 2. That's it. You can't have any more.
No, I was going to say it's not the end of the world, I think, for a hockey player to be on the smaller side. I think there are some incredibly talented NHL hockey players that are on the smaller side, but a team cannot be completely comprised of small hockey players, because at the end of the day, even come deep runs into the playoffs, you play a team like Vegas and you run into a big problem.
Yeah, it's just I'm a firm believer. I don't need giants, but I need 2 or 3 big guys. And when I say big guys, I'm talking minimum 6'2", minimum 210. Hard to move people that you're going to feel if you're going to decide to go hit them.
You're Dustin Bufflins.
Yeah, you're Brian Bickle. You're Troy Brower. Somebody like that. I just need a big hunk of man meat. Figured you'd enjoy that one. The same token with that is you can't have somebody you can't have a 5'9" player on every line. There's a hole there, especially defensively. There is nobody that I know that's that good at who's 5'9" that is able to stop a cycle with somebody who's 6'1". They just can't get the puck from them. So that becomes a problem. So again, he's pretty skilled, but as I said, we're at our limit.
Yeah. Let's see. What else do I want to talk about?
Who else do you want to talk about?
There's one. Speaking of bigger guys, that I'm going to be real to my few listeners, I don't know a ton about. I haven't been able to watch him a ton because watching Swiss League hockey is a little inconvenient here in the States. But that is your Yuri Felkman. who was drafted this past year, plays for the FCL Tigers, which is the Switzerland Professional League. He is a centerman that is 6'4". He is a big guy. Strengths have definitely been puck handling and just his size being a huge thing. Unsure on potential, one, because as I said, it's not really the accessibility on watching Switzerland hockey is not incredibly high. This is one of the reasons why I like on ice development camp is because I want to see kids like this who I can't see most of the year. But I've heard good things. I would like him to, come to Rockford eventually. I think he is an interesting piece, of potential, because you don't know a lot about your European hockey players compared to the Canadian ones that you're able to watch or have scouts at all the time. But I think he is an interesting piece that isn't discussed a lot, because he is a 6-foot forward or 6-foot centerman, and that's always nice.
Yep. I will throw out Victor Stendenborg.
Stendenborg?
Yes. Number one, because he's Finnish. He is unsigned still, which is fine. They have a little bit longer to sign him. He can stay over in Finland. He will be the perfect addition to your fourth line. Blackhawks don't have anybody like him who is a defensive whiz. Again, just 5'10", so he'll need a big player to go along with him. But I have a feeling when this team starts playoff, that might be somebody that anchors your fourth line. Not going to get a lot of offense out of him, but is a shutdown player. So I kind of like him, and most of your listeners will figure out anytime I can get a Victor, I'm all for it. Just something about it. Victor.
Nice.
Sounds pretty cool.
That it does.
So, that's about the only other guy that I got. I would assume you'd want to talk about Lardass a tiny bit, or no?
Just a little bit, and then we got one more.
Because I think we've mentioned Lardass a lot.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, it seems like you like saying Lardass a lot.
So Nick Lardass was drafted back in 2023. Has played for the Brantford Bulldogs. Dressed one game for Rockford at the tail end of last year once Brantford got knocked out of the playoffs. He's a 5'11" winger. His entry level runs through the 2026-2027 season. I have Rockford ? As to if he goes there next year or if he goes back to Brantford. We don't know. We got 50 points in 37 games last year, just as a reminder, he was hurt for quite a bit, but then came back from injury, and it looked like he had never been hurt. He looked like the same great prospect. Kid's got wheels, can put the puck in the net. Big fan.
Yeah, he's how old is he?
19.
He's 19.
So he could go back to Brantford.
Right, but he can go to Rockford.
Yes.
Yeah, I am under the hope, just like with Artie, I would like him to be in Rockford. He's the one guy that everybody's got kind of circled and is going to tell us this is our goal scorer. This is going to be our goal scorer. So I'd like to see that start to work out in the AHL. I'd like to see him on, top power play. He has a knack for finding the net. So, and as we've discussed this week, with most of our prospects, and it's not getting a ton better. That besides Connor, we're looking for goal scorers. And Connor's not a yes, Hunky Princess.
Good thing, and a lot of people don't like the pick, but good thing this past year with the number 27 pick, we drafted a kid who really loves to score, and that is your Merrick Banneker. Also from the Brantford Bulldogs with Nick Lardis. Guys, if Lardis wasn't scoring, it was Banneker, and now we have.
Yeah, so
sorry, I have to defend Banneker because the pick got a lot of hate. I'm a big fan. The kid puts the puck in the net. How can you complain?
Yeah, there's a lot of people had a problem with us giving up a couple second-round picks. We got a gazillion picks, man. We got a gazillion picks next year too, so doesn't matter. Nothing wrong with giving away a little something, moving up for somebody who you want. But again, Nick, I'd like to see him in the AHL. I'm sure that's where the Hawks would rather have him. And I expect to see him pumping in one-timers.
Amazing. We've got one more. We're going to talk about a couple more next week. We're going to spread them out just because I have a lot of guys that we can talk about. But one more before we wrap up. He's a favorite of mine. And that is your Adam Guyon. Because we've only talked about forwards or defensemen. We haven't talked about goalies, mainly because Drew Comesso is already in Rockford, and there's only one other goalie on the horizon, and that is your Adam Guyon, who is 20, will be starting his first year at UMD this upcoming fall. He is 6'3", was drafted this past year in 2023, originally with the Green Bay Gamblers. Yeah, I saw him. I was fortunate to see him this past year. The rumblings were that, the glove was the main issue. I thought it looked fine when I saw him. I liked the potential that I saw in him when I saw the one game, but I think he has a very high ceiling. I'm also a big fan of the size.
Yeah, he's in the picture. He is your 1B, is what all the hope is. We'll see.
I definitely think there's potential for that. I don't see him and I'm like, what is Kyle thinking? It's a big question mark, as it should be for a goalie who's 20 and is going into his freshman year of college. I think college is going to do very well for him in terms of performance. But I definitely think that there is an incredible amount of potential, if development goes as we all wish. He certainly could get there.
Yeah, big, athletic. He checks a lot of boxes. It's just, basically I'm an amateur. And I struggle to give readouts for forwards or defensemen. I don't even want to try with goaltenders. I was a big fan of Kevin Lankinen's and his work, and it's just so difficult. These shooters are so good, and the goaltenders need to do so much. I don't know. That's why you draft one at least every other year, and you keep everything well stacked, and you hope. So,
I do think there's a lot of hoping, but I do think college is going to do well for him in terms of growth. Because, you look at a Trey Augustine, for example. The kid had 1 year before he started at Michigan State and right now. Prior to Michigan State, there was a lot of, he was half of Connor Bedard's highlight reel. There was a lot of him getting lit up quite a bit, a lot of unsure. Kid does a complete 180 with a year at Michigan State. And it's like, oh, yeah, he's definitely one of the front runners behind, the Kosa kid. and there's a lot more confidence that he will be going through the Dead Wings pipeline. So I think, not that I assume that Guyan is going to make that 180 in his first year, but I definitely think it's a different game between the USHL and the NCAA in terms of performance and everything. And there's definitely a potential for him to get there.
Yeah. Number one, my computer might die.
That's fine. We're almost done.
Right. And no, he's somebody that's at least two or 3 years in college. And then you worry about him coming up another year or two in Rockford. Yeah. And then you make your move. Yeah. So, he's 5 years out. We figure Drew's another year or two out. So, and then you're hoping it's the two of them. Just like those Boston people, they'll be hugging, they'll be ass patting. Oh, it's going to be unbelievable.
And on that note, just as a reminder to hit that like and subscribe on either Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube, however you watch or listen to us ramble on a weekly basis about hockey. Just because hockey season is over does not mean that we are over. We do not take a snooze until the beginning of October. Guys, we have no life. We will be here talking about hockey every week until next season. The link for the new merch is going to be down below. Make sure to take a look. Shout out to T. Murphy for doing our logo and for doing our merch. And that is all. And we will talk at you guys next week.